One. Hi, everybody. I'm here with a speech and language pathologist, Abbe Simon. Our dear Abbe. I've asked people to send in questions, and somebody wrote a question in, Abbe, that I think is great for a speech pathologist, and I hope people take the time to listen because I think this is fairly common. Someone wrote, "My mother refuses to use the communication book her speech pathologist made for her because she just expects us to understand what she's saying, but we're missing so many of the words." I remember those days living in the life of charades when my son had a stroke. This is tough. I remember those days well. So do you have any suggestions? Because people really reach those points of frustration. And if somebody's refusing to use the communication book, or I know like with my son, sometimes he refused to draw or write, we just went straight from trying to just letting it escalate and getting really frustrating soon. So how do people deal with this?
Yeah. Well, first I'll say that I'm so glad to know this particular speech pathologist, and in this case, there was a communication book offered. So many times I'll meet someone with aphasia and they come in with different levels of their ability to communicate verbally, and they have no what I call backup. And to know that this person does have a communication book makes me feel optimistic because clearly they're receptive to using one.
Sorry, forgot to turn my phone off.
Okay.
Sorry. Here we go again. I'll just edit. I'll just trim from the front.
Okay.
Okay, here we go.
I didn't even hear the phone.
Oh, you didn't hear it? 3, 2, 1. Hi, everybody. I'm Carol with the Aphasia Recovery Connection, and I'm here with a speech pathologist, our dear Abbe. We're going to ask her a question. She's Abbe Simon. She's from North Carolina. Here's the question. My mother refuses to use the communication book that her speech pathologist made for her because she expects us to understand what she's saying, but we miss so many of her words. Do you have any suggestions?
Well, first I'll say I'm really glad to know this person has a communication book because there are many times I'll meet someone with aphasia and I can tell that their ability to express themselves is hindered by something called aphasia, and they've got no backup. They have no means of relaying information about themselves or thoughts that they're having to somebody else. So I'm glad there's a communication book in place, which means that this person is receptive to using something as an alternative when she or he is not able to speak or write. A communication book could be the size of a 3-ring binder, or it could be the size of what I like to use, which is just a small photo album, like a little flip book, as some people like to call it. And this person might be stubborn or opposed to using the communication book for many reasons. One might be because they want to be able to speak or write and not use something alternatively. Or the communication book might not have what this person needs to talk about in it. And I've seen some communication books that have a standard number of pages, colors, days of the week, months, feelings, weather, standard things that people assume we all want to talk about, but that might not be appropriate. And so what's really important when creating a communication book, whether it's a speech pathologist that's doing it or someone's friends or family, is to get really good information about what's important to that particular person. And if that person wants to only talk about bird watching, or if that person only wants to talk about certain television shows that he or she is watching, a communication book should have different options for the topics that matter to them. And in a communication book, Carol, we could have words that are printed, we could have graphs, They could be very simple or very elaborate. So in this woman's case, if she's refusing because she wants to use her speech, the family or whomever is speaking with her needs to say, it's so great that you're trying to talk, and we are here to help you do that. But what you're saying is so important to us, we're missing some of it. And you don't want to miss things that I'm telling you. I don't want to miss things that you're trying to tell me. So let's use this backup and see if what I'm understanding is correct. So really the whole point in me answering this is that communication books should be personalized and person-centered. And that is done when we ask the person in simple ways what's important for them and what they want to engage in conversation about.
Good. Well, and I think a communication book is important for so many people. And you can use it also just to practice on your own. Sometimes just sitting on your own and going through some of those things and practicing the words if you're able to say those words. I do want to add one last thing. You mentioned that it was great that speech pathologist had given her a communication book. I want to share that, my son had his stroke when he was 10. When he was about 12 or 13, I finally heard of the University of Michigan Aphasia program where Dr. Hinckley was at the time. And as I sat in that waiting room, I saw another couple sitting there, and they were using a communication book. And I was like, what is that? What is that? I had never seen one. 2 years into his stroke, I had never seen a communication book. And to be honest, the emotion that I felt, besides being sort of happy to know that there was such a thing, I was really angry that something like that had never been offered to us. Because my son and I were living in daily frustration, playing charades. Mm-hmm. And when I saw that, something like that could have really helped.
Right, and it's not meant to replace. I mean, in some severe situations, if someone is really unable to verbalize or write, it might be the priority to use something like that, but it's meant, again, as a backup or another way of communicating. And you just said something that was important, which was the communication books can be changed, right? Nothing is permanent about them. And something else in a communication book could include not just the way someone would answer or express a thought or make a decision, but a communication book could also have questions written in it that someone would like to practice asking another individual. Mm-hmm. So when you say practice with it, practice in a really functional sort of role-playing way by looking at things that you might want to ask somebody else and or say in response to a question. So it is really multi-purposeful.
Good. So if you are somebody who's never seen a communication book, you can probably Google communication book aphasia, and you'll find some online that you can get an idea of what they are. You can ask your speech and language pathologist. Abbe said that she often uses like a photo flip book. Mm-hmm. So there's no right or wrong way to have a communication book, but having some strategies is often helpful to the person with aphasia and to the family and loved ones. So great, thank you for that. And Abbe is a speech pathologist in North Carolina. She has a company called iCommunicare, and she works with both people with aphasia and care partners. So I'm going to go ahead and attach her website and link in this post. If you would like to ask a Dear Abbe question, you can either message me directly or you can go ahead and click that link and you can send your question directly to Abbe. So thank you so much.
Thank you. See you next time.